Today we're taking you inside 3 extraordinary homes where textiles, pattern, and color don't just decorate the space, they take center stage. First, we travel to the North Shore of Boston to visit Danica Herrick, an artist and textile designer whose home doubles as both studio and showroom. It's filled with a mixture of her own incredible designs and beautiful patterns.
This is kind of like my little space, but this has all of my supplies for block carving and painting, and keep my fabric and sewing machines over there.
Next, we head to New York City to explore the richly layered apartment of textile designer Lisa Fine. Inspired by her lifelong love of Indian textiles, Lisa has transformed a 1927 former hotel into a jewel box apartment filled with vibrant prints and global craftsmanship.
And I've traveled all over the world, and you can see textiles in almost everything I do.
And then we're in the kaleidoscopic Los Angeles home of Danny Daisy, a textile designer and artist known for fearlessly embracing color.
I'm constantly exploring new styles, new color schemes, new ways to design a space and make it special.
Together, these homes show how textiles can transform a space, adding warmth, personality, and layers of artistry that reflect the imaginative worlds of the designers who create them. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Danica Herrick. Welcome to my house on the North Shore of Boston.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Danica Herrick. I'm an artist and I design fabric and wallpaper, and I'm also a former interior designer. You are in my home here on the North Shore of Boston. My husband and I like to go antiquing and collect stuff, and I'm also an avid DIYer, so I will constantly be painting something and redoing something or reupholstering something. But it's just years of our kind of collected mess. So welcome to my entry. So when you walk in, we kind of have just a lot of random things. Like my husband used to, when he first started off, was a sign maker, so he collects signs. So we have the donut when you walk in. And then when you come through here, since I design wallpaper, my house has become my studio and my showroom. I test everything here. When I design stuff, I usually will do a room up. So things are constantly changing in here. But this room is the sitting room, and this has the Courtney stripe on grass cloth, and then the Elsie's garden in here, but that will change. And then this is the Kirsten on the chairs. And ironically, both my sisters are in this room. So Courtney is one sister, Kirsten's the other. So I name my patterns after people I know and just names that I like. This room is just kind of like a cozy little nook, no TV, just to read, have cocktails. This entire piece is just filled with plates. I am a plate collector. So this is where my blue and whites and greens live. This is probably the oldest piece that we have. This is from our first house. We got married 20 years ago, and it has been painted about 20 times. Now over here, I like old and random pieces, but these were, again, more auction pieces of a hunt scene, and I just liked this old dog piece, even though it's ripped up, but I love the frame on it. And then this is probably one of my favorite pieces. I got this cat when I was down at Green Chair. It was a charity in North Carolina. And they have a charity shop that they used to raise money, but I just loved him, so he came home with me. And that's kind of the story of most pieces in my house. These chairs are really fun. I got these at an antique store in Newburyport, and they were crushed red velvet. It looked like Santa's suit when I got them, but they're actually, the name is, I think they're Pearson chairs. But I had them upholstered, but these, we've had them probably for like 15 years, but they're just super comfortable. And when our kids were little, they would basically just have so much fun spinning their friends in them. But yeah, these are some of these are another of my favorite pieces. On this wall, I have, this is a placemat. It's one of the original ones from 1945 from Louise Kenyon, who was one of the Folly Cove designers. And they were based right north of here in Rockport, about 15 minutes away. And they were a group of printmakers, this group of women that started making prints, and Schumacher now has a few of their patterns as wallpaper, but I just fell in love with this and the simplicity of it. And this I got up in Gloucester at an auction, and then Jenny Andrews painted that piece. And then over here, this little table I love. This just a little like fake book door, but I really thought it was a cute little piece. So the pattern on these drapes is the Elsie's Garden, and I designed this because I wanted a really large branching chinoiserie feel. So, and then I kind of custom colored it to work in here because that's what I do. So all my designs, I love that I could custom color and make whatever anyone wants. So, and then I kind of put it on a tone-on-tone silhouette, the Courtney stripe. And that just kind of, there is a lot of pattern in my house. My entire house is tons of like pattern on pattern on pattern, but I really love to be able to mix up and layer, and it's a lot to look at, but you have to kind of take it and like take it apart and like kind of study each one individually, but they all kind of work together. And that's one of my favorite things about designing patterns. So my husband is a realtor, and I was a former interior designer. And before we bought this house, I think we lived in about 7 houses because we'd constantly be buying a house, fixing it up, moving on to the next. 7 years ago, we actually lived right around the corner, and this house came on the market. My husband had emailed it to me and said, let's go look at this. So we got here to it was a big open house, and he goes, don't look at the house, just go straight to the backyard. And I was like, but I need to check the rooms. But he's like, no, just go out to the backyard. And this house, we picked it for location. It overlooks the Salem Harbor, and we have a lighthouse in our backyard. So this is like the best house for the summer. We love this place. And so we have been here for 7 years and slowly working on making it ours. All right, let's go into the living room. This room, we wanted to feel moodier. We painted the ceiling blue. We hang out in here, and in the winter, we have the fireplace going. This is where everyone hangs out, watches TV. So this room, we just wanted to feel cozy, but it had this huge cathedral ceiling, and it used to be white and a textured ceiling, which was just lovely. So we smoothed everything over, painted it blue, and it definitely helped to envelop you into the space. So starting off in this room, I found this lamp at an antique store, I think up in New Hampshire, and I just loved it. I call it it kind of feels like a lamp cactus, but I love the blue and how it kind of played off. It kind of, it's a more mid-century piece, which I love, but it kind of lightens up all the antiques. Now, again, with my husband, with being a sign maker, if you look at this room, you will see he just collects signs, but that was the original sign from when he had his first business. And he was a sign maker at first, and then he went into real estate. So he made his own sign and started his own real estate company, and that was it. And that was, so that's kind of, now it's Herrick and Company, because this is where we all gather, and this is where the company is. So in this room, again, there's more, I have more of my patterns that I just keep making pillows and trying out stuff. So they're ever changing. And then the colors in this room, at first I wanted to keep it neutral, so I can kind of keep changing things out. But I fell in love with this rug and the warmth of adding that little bit of rust into it. So it kind of became the launching pad for everything that I do. And like when I'm colorizing patterns, I'm trying to work it into this rug. So this now with the blues, the rust, the browns, and then there's even a little bit of greens in here. This is the table. I love this table. I think it's a John Dickinson style table. It's a metal, and I wound up, it was really rusted and in tough shape, so I kind of just gave it a whitewash because it had a faint whitewash on it, and we striped it, and it's just to tie in the armchairs. I got these armchairs at a local consignment shop here. The fireplace, we renovated this room about 5 years ago. There used to be a step down sunken room off of it with 2 doors that actually were exterior doors because there used to be a patio outside, and they put an addition on, the former owners. So we raised the floor up and we opened up and arched the space and kind of fixed up the mantle because it was in rough shape. So here I used to be a decorative artist, so I faux painted the marble onto the hearth, and I collect disco balls. So you're gonna see disco balls on a lot of spaces in here. So we just wanted to have it be a little bit cleaner and simpler because it was this house was built in 95, so it was a very 95 colonial looking mantle. So we just beefed it up, and it's a 2-way, it goes through to the next room. So we have this thing going all winter. When I see a painting, I will just buy it, and I will say I will find a home for it. So I have these 2 I really like together. This was actually this is a photocopy of my grandfather's business sign. It was Andy's Auto Repair, but my mom blew that up for me, and we framed it and put it in here. This is an old Chesterfield, but it is the most comfortable couch. You just sink into it. It's really, really soft. And I was going to get it reupholstered, but it's in such pristine shape. This came out of an estate sale, I think, down in Connecticut. And I just loved it because to find a really comfy couch is great. So the coffee table is another piece that was found at an auction. There with this, we made a nice big floral arrangement. I love fresh flowers. I try to have them as often as possible, and when I take you out to the gardens, I love to grow. Peony season just ended, but I love to grow flowers and constantly just be able to go out and cut and bring them into the house because it definitely gives your room life and it makes it feel a little friendlier and softer. In this house, you're going to see a lot of pieces that I've found through auctions. We have a great auction house, Kaminsky Auction here in town, and I am constantly online doing auctions or going to an auction house, but some of my favorite pieces are from the auction, so I'm excited to show you guys those. Now I'm going to take you into the dining room. This dining room is very multifunctional because I'm an artist and because I'm designing and painting patterns all the time, I actually use this room as more of a studio because it has the best light in the house. It's south facing, it's all windows. The center of this room is this table, which is a work in progress currently, but this table has a very special, and it's a special meaning. It was built by my father for our wedding present. And when we got married in Salem, Massachusetts. Since my husband is in real estate and does a lot of development, he had bought a house on the Salem Common and he was making it into condos. And before they started demolition, we decided to throw a wedding party. We had eloped, but we threw a party afterwards. And it was in October, in Halloween in Salem. So we just made it a big costume party. And the house was it's a beautiful Georgian house. And it was, the moldings, everything in it were gorgeous. So we're like, the house was in great shape. Let's throw a party. So this table was actually made from the floorboards on the first floor. The floor was hickory, and I don't know if you can tell, but some of the boards were 30 inches wide. They had to be replaced because of structural issues in the house. So my father took the floorboards because this is where our dance floor for when we had our party was, for our wedding party, and he built us a table for a wedding present out of the floorboards from the house we got our wedding party in. So it's kind of special, and right now it's currently, I've been working on painting the Salem Harbor, and it's in process, but having all the houses that we've lived in, since we've lived in probably a total of 10 together, and all like the areas that are special for us, painted onto this table. So this is just the beginning of it, but yeah, we're here. We have a lighthouse right behind our house. So I've not painted the house yet. That's our old house around the corner and another house we lived in up the street. But we have the lighthouse right out of here. So this room actually has the best views. There's a beach across the street and the harbor right in front of us. I wallpapered this room with the Big Ben ticking stripe that I made. And I thought this would be a great room to tent because of the shape and the size. I regretted that once I started wallpapering because I had no idea what I took on. But this was definitely very challenging, getting all the stripes to line up and feel like it's one big tented space. And I think I needed like a chiropractor because this took about a week and my neck from looking up was so sore. But I absolutely love it. And it now just kind of feels like you're walking into a big tented space. The chandelier was originally black. It was a basic chandelier that we had bought when we first moved in, and it used to hang in the blue room right off here. And I switched it around and I took brass, like sheets of brass, and I found these stars online, and I created more of it looks like kind of fireworks. So I just kind of created a ruffled sleeve out of brass, and I cut the brass into the little ruffles and attached it and put the stars on wire, pieces of brass wire to kind of create the effect. And I painted it gold. So that was one of my DIYs. And then the other thing too is that in this room, I designed the woodlands pattern on the chairs, and they're just little slipcovers. These are old embroidered shield back chairs. But I put the woodlands pattern on here, and then to kind of tie it in, I actually created a thick banding. I braided it, and I had stuffed I made big long rolls of fabric, like kind of little sausages, and I would basically braided, I forget how many yards it took, but it was, wrapping the cotton and then braiding it and then attaching it to because I wanted to have a little bit more of a three-dimensional trim on this instead of a flat one. So that was another little project. This house is just constantly changing. I'm sure these will change in a year or two because I'll get a new pattern and a new idea. My favorite space in this house is the backyard. But going inside, my favorite space is now the kitchen. We just finished a renovation. It was a big undertaking, but it was inspired from a tile floor from one of our favorite restaurants in Boston. And it kind of grew from there. So that is now my new favorite space. Before that, I would have to have said it was my office because I am in there basically like 12 hours a day. So that room I had made very kind of cozy because I spent so much time in it. All right, now we're gonna go to the kitchen, which we just remodeled. This kitchen was originally inspired by floors from a restaurant in Boston, Contessa, that we love to go to. They had little 6-inch squares, and I was originally gonna paint this floor, and I was not gonna renovate the kitchen. I was just gonna change out our old island. But things quickly unravel when you decide to do any sort of renovation or remodel projects. So what started off was, we're just gonna paint the floors, do the counters, and then we realized our old cabinets were not in the greatest shape, and we were just gonna paint them, but then we're like, let's get new cabinets, which quickly turned into, let's remove a wall. So right along here is where there used to be the sink, and there was a doorway and a little window, which drove me crazy because you'd be washing dishes looking out of a rectangular opening, which I hated. So that wall was the first thing to go. And it made a huge difference because it really just kind of connected everything. And I love this space now. So then it went from being painted floors. We had to rip out the hardwood because of some issues we had. So we just went for it and did 14 different types of marble on the floor here. And this was quite the undertaking. It took about 3 weeks to finish, actually more than that. But the problem is the pickets. I was like, great, we found pickets that will work. We don't have to cut anything. There we got 12 by 12 tiles. The pickets were all, perfect. Everything matched up until we found out that the pickets had been discontinued. So we needed 425. 300 was available. And so it took about a week. The poor tile guy had to cut everything. And that took about a week to cut all the pickets and to get everything to fit. So that kind of held up the job a little bit, but in the end, I'm so happy. And we have like the Buchanans did our floors, and they were amazing because I had to create a map, and I still have it somewhere, but it's a map showing, and I lettered every one of these 14 different type of marbles. And they had to go through and painstakingly check off because it got so confusing because some of these look very similar to another. Like there's 2 different shades of terracotta. There's 2 different shades of the kind of a mint green, and even the browns. Those are 2 different types of browns. So I know I drove them crazy, but they did an unbelievable job, and I absolutely feel like this is now makes the space. And so after opening up the kitchen, I used to have an island that was like a high-low island, and it drove me nuts because you were just always, one side always just collected junk. And I didn't have enough space to really lay stuff out and work, so I wanted just one flat, larger island. And then we flip-flopped our sink and our stove. Our sink used to be, there was a sink here and the cooktop was here. I like it much better this way because I just like to be able to have the sink kind of central to be able to look outside. And then I went with an Arabescato marble, which I loved. I wanted some movement, and this definitely gave me that. And it's just so pretty. We put in the brass cafe shelves, and these were on, when we pulled one of the colors from the marble into the backsplash tile. So the funny story about this is this I was not planning to have so much pink in this kitchen, but I actually love it. When I had bought the bar stools online and I had bought my lights, they were supposed to be the color of this more like soft peachy pink on the floor. When they came in, those chairs first, they were very, very pink. And then when these arrived, they were pink. So I was like, it's meant to be, we're gonna go with it. So, but I'm the only, I have a house full of men, a husband and 2 sons. So I'm the only girl, and I don't get to put my pink in as much as I want to. So this is my touch. And I absolutely love it. So we put in a brass rail, foot rail. We painted the island a shade of green to kind of ground it, and then we wallpapered the area over the center of the island. And just because I overdo pattern, and I'm a pattern girl. So, and I love to I have paper on like the majority of the ceilings in my house. And then over here, this table this table I did in 2017. This was an IKEA Doxa table. That was just the basic white table. I painted it with a shagreen pattern, and this took about 2 weeks to paint. And I remember we had a little tiny, when we had the wall here, we had a little TV, and I had watched, I never watched Vanderpump Rules, but I watched all 7 seasons, and that was my Bravo induction. Now I'm just a Housewives junkie. So, but this took 2 weeks to do, and it's now, I'm like, this is a family heirloom. Like, it's gonna get passed down. And so I've polyed it, and I've protected it, and I also gold leaf the base so that it's a little bit fancier now with our fancier kitchen. The chairs are Ward Bennett chairs that we found at an antique shop. It's the original mohair. They actually, I think they came out of Harvard when they renovated one of the buildings. And then I just took the finish off because the finish was very like a real orange shellac, and I did not like it. So I just took off. These are just raw right now. I do have plans just to wax them eventually. And then this light fixture was this mid-century fixture. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. But I added a little pop of pink, and I took rose quartz orbs and I ground them down on a belt sander so they'd have a flat edge, and attached them to the sides of the piece, just in between the light bulbs, just to kind of tie it into all the other pink. And then this is one of my patterns. This is the Fairfield stripe on the windows, just to kind of tie some of the blue in. We have so many colors going on in the floor that you could kind of pull from anything in here, and you really miss. Coming down this way, we just put all pantry, appliance garages behind the doors here. And on that side, I didn't want to have any upper cabinets over there. After having a kitchen that felt so closed in with so many uppers and so many walls, I just wanted to have it feel nice and open. So in here, we just did one wall of cabinets. One other thing that I love in here, because my grandparents were real, I would spend summers with them, like Emma and Andy Yagnasak, my grandparents, and I have such fond memories of, they had a lake house in New Jersey, so we would spend our summers with them. But this was a clock that was in the basement, and as kids, we'd go to Grandma and Grandpa's, and the kids would all hang out in the basement. So this clock it was theirs, and I kind of paired it with I found this little planter tin, wall hanger tin, and I love it. I always stick an orchid in it, and it kind of travels around the house depending upon the orchid. So, and then over here, this was a painting by my grandmother, and then this is a Janet Bolton quilted piece that I liked. I just thought it was sweet, so they worked well together. And now right off the kitchen is a powder room. And this was one of my earlier wallpaper designs. Come on in. So this is a mural I created called the Citrus Garden Mural. And it is just lemon and orange trees. But I wanted to do, since I love blue and white, I went and did a complete blue and white in here. I just wanted it to feel cozy and enclosed when you come in. So this is your little blue and white pop off the kitchen. So how I got from interior designer to fabric wallpaper designer, I've worn a lot of hats throughout my life. I went to school for bio, and quickly, day one, dropped that major. I'd always been very creative, done a lot of art, but I never seriously thought about studying art because I thought I'd be a starving artist, and I needed to get a job that would pay bills. So I eventually had to take an art elective, and I was like, why am I not doing this? This is what I love doing. So lo and behold, I also worked as an apprentice doing decorative painting when I was in New York at a school. And I fell in love with interiors because I was painting the walls, the floors, murals, even I was painting things on their fabric. And that led me to go back to school for interior design, where I've moved to Boston, and I worked as an interior designer for 20 years. During that time, I had a design blog, had a fretwork company, and I also had to reteach myself Illustrator, and I started to figure out how to design pattern repeats. And I was able to figure out how to take my artwork and put that into fabric and wallpaper and make it into repeats. So that quickly took off for me. I started posting things on Spoonflower, and within 4 years, it became like a real job. And then when the pandemic hit, I had finished a large commercial interior design project, and I just realized I can't go into people's homes. What am I gonna do? And at that time, everyone was online, and the fabric and wallpaper went crazy because people couldn't shop in a store. And I just said, I'm gonna focus on just this and see how it goes during this time. And within that first year, it really took off even more. And I decided to quit my day job and just do surface pattern design. Now let's go over to my office. So this is my office. I spend, like I said, most of my time in here. I work from home. I know I should get an office and a physical space outside the house, but I love being able to just when the whim strikes, design a pattern, or if I could get up at 6 in the morning and just sit down with my coffee and start working. So in here, I wanted this to feel really cozy since I spend so much time in here. And so I used the Walter ticking stripe, and I wallpapered the ceiling, the walls, inside the bookcase with the ticking stripe. I even did the skirting around my desk and then my printer area in it. And then I trimmed it in a cranberry grosgrain ribbon. And then I paired it with the Ophelia pattern in a cranberry maroon over here on the drapes with a James stripe along the banding. So I honestly, most of my designs, I just design what I want in my house a lot of the time, sadly. So that's where most of them come from. And I also have so many customers that will reach out and be like, hey, can you change this color? Can you move this around? So it's great because sometimes you just get stuck in what you like and what you like to do. So I love when people like have a custom or they need me to do something that's out of my box that I live in here. So because it kind of opens my eyes and lets me think in a different color palette or in a different scale. So in my office, this is my main workspace here. I have 2 computers. I work on Photoshop. I paint everything by hand. I then scan it in or photograph it and then work on it on the large computer and get it into repeats, do all my colorizing. And then over here is my big mood board where I'm always kind of playing and testing out patterns and scale to see what's working. Or just to kind of see, all right, I forgot about this pattern, let's mix it with this. So it's kind of like a nice little area to play. And then I have the bookcase. This was actually, this room, when we bought the house, didn't do much in here as far as structurally. The bookcase and the desk were in here. It was their home office. But since it was white and I had the very vintage 90s, it looked like Saved by the Bell. It was like pink, teal, and seafoam. It's like splattered wallpaper. So that quickly changed. The house was very green, pink, and peach when we moved in. So we've been like slowly making it into ours. So in here, I painted the cabinets they've been a few colors, but this is the latest. This is in a nice deep cranberry red. I just kind of, all the things over time that I collect, and it kind of moves around. But I love my blue and white, and then I just kind of blend things together. I have all my books for inspiration in here, and just some more little framed art pieces that I've picked up over time. Made a little pleated lampshade, and I really liked the salvaged edge on it, so I kept that. And then I painted the floor. That's another project. So this was a hardwood floor, but it was, when we first moved in, all the floors were very orangey oak. So I painted this one just to kind of neutralize it. Since I'm always, I love blue and white, it's my neutral, so this floor became blue and white and everything kind of works off of it. And then, what else is in here? These are really old cabinets that I've had for several houses, but they are great flat storage for this is where I store, all of my original artwork is gonna be in here. And it's just great for storing and all my color maps. So I probably need to get a new one because this one's beat up pretty badly, but it is a workhorse. And then the top, we just finished it by kind of banding it off with the grosgrain ribbon and popping a starlight in the middle to kind of like the cherry on top. All right, now let's go to the primary suite, which is right down here off my office. In primary suite, there's a little funny story. When we first moved in, there was hunter green carpets. The previous owners, they loved hunter green and peach and pink, and there was a lot of it. So everything in here was hunter green and then big poofy pink. I call them prom dress stripes. So that was the first thing to go, and we kind of neutralized it and lived with it. And over time, this room still is not finished, but it's like we just kind of slowly decorate and let it unfold over time. So in here, I love my blue, so this has got a nice soft restful blue. It has grass cloth on the back wall and it's paint on the walls. And this piece right here, this sculptural etagere piece, I think it is, it's here right now. I think eventually it's going to go to our living room. And then in here, I wanted it just to be kind of quiet, soft, and restful. So one of my first patterns was the Emma stripe. And so this is on the Roman shades. And I've been just mixing in. So there was this is, I think, the Brent. This is the Pearls Bouquet. And then this is a new one, the Water Marbled Fanfare, and then the Brush Weaves Plaid. So we've kind of just keep mixing in patterns. And these are new. So I kind of swap things out as I come up with new patterns. I'll just recolor it to kind of work in my current color scheme. And then this is, when you go outside, you'll see I actually hand blocked all of my outdoor pillows, but I scanned it and turned it into a print on that I sell that is actually made as a 24-inch pillow. So you could just cut the squares, sew them together, and either put an 18-inch pillow with a flange or do a big 24-inch pillow with a banded edge. Since, again, we have really big cathedral ceilings in here, there was a ceiling fan, and it was the debate, like my husband loves the ceiling fan. So we have one, he won out in the living room, but I was like, the ceiling fan wasn't doing it for me. And we have air conditioning, so, and it doesn't really get that hot here, despite today, but it's usually pretty breezy here on the water. So we just chose a giant fixture. This was, when we moved in 2017, we put this one up. And it kind of just fills the space and brings the height down a little bit. The nightstands were auction finds. The veneer was not in the greatest shape, so I wound up puttying and painting them. I just love how simple and clean the lines are, and I like the hardware, just a little simple pulls on there. Then this dresser over here was another piece that we had that we just painted some stripes on to, I think eventually I have plans for putting something a little bit better for having the TV and to have it hidden away, but we haven't gotten to that project just yet. Okay, let me take you into the primary bathroom. This room is it's on the list to be remodeled, but we've just been, I kind of say, just put wallpaper on it and make it look a little prettier. But so there's a lot of dark black and green marble in here that came with the house that we've been living with, because we have plans to kind of update this and do a few other things in here. But in the meantime, I did put a new vanity top on, and I created, just like last month, I took my normal heat wave pattern and I scaled it up by 3 times because of a customer had requested, they're like, can you make this bigger? And I'm like, sure. And I loved it, so it went into here, and I just kind of feel like it's like a huge faux bois. It gives you movement, and it's quiet too. So this room has the giant supersized heat wave. This was a picture of my husband, his parents gave him, and it's kind of fun. The joke is, if you have to use the toilet, you kind of feel like you're going sideways with the boat here. The other fun feature is this house came with a telephone next to the toilet. We haven't gotten rid of that yet during the renovation, but it's just it's pretty funny if you need to make a call. Now I'm going to take you upstairs to the guest room and the studio. The guest room, we call this Ashley's room. It's my niece Ashley, and she lives in Charleston, and she comes up and visits all the time, so she sleeps in this the most. So a few Thanksgivings ago, Ashley and I wallpapered this room, and this is the Pearls Bouquet. So up here it was just light and airy, soft blues and greens, again, my favorites. And we kind of mixed in, this is the heat wave again, that was in my bathroom, but regular scale. And we have the Amelia and the Ashley lattice and the Veronica and the buffalo plaid in here, as well as just a cabana stripe on the curtains. But this room, all the rooms on the second floor have great views because we're on a little peninsula, so you kind of have like 270-degree water views, and you have the lighthouse out the window here. So, and it gets really great sunrises and sunsets here too. So Over here, these are just some chairs that I had slip covered, and I created I have a striped star pattern where I cut the stripe off and I attached that for banding on the chairs. And this is just another, I found this at a estate sale, this little bench, as well as the bird house. This was an old Salvation Army find of mine, this dresser. I just kind of like to mix in the mid-century with the antiques. This old pine yard sale dresser. And then the whole point of this room is just, the guests, you just want them to feel like at peace. I didn't want to make it too busy. Well, it is very busy with a lot of pattern, but I want it just to feel kind of quiet and the colors to be a little softer and more restful in here. All right, now I'm going to take you down the hall to the studio. It's basically the sewing studio and where I keep all my supplies. This room was done a few years back, and it started off with the painted floor and the grass cloth. I put the tulip stripe. This was actually, my kids have moved their rooms around, but this was actually my oldest son's room when he first moved in. He moved across the hall. I decided to take this because having my business at home, I've kind of taken over several rooms in the house, and my sewing and fabric needed a place because I have so much fabric. And I'm always sewing curtains or pillows or making samples. So here is the sewing table. And then behind me, this was the closet that I took over and used this to have, I keep all my fabric down underneath. I paint my nails up here. I mean, this is kind of like my little space, but this has all of my supplies for block carving and painting, and keep my fabric and sewing machines over there. But I love having a space that's just kind of, we have multifunctional spaces, but this one, it's just nice and restful and quiet up here. And then when I have really big projects, I take it to the dining room table, because that table, my dad designed it. He actually created it to fit a bolt of fabric. So it's 54 inches long and it's 54 inches wide by 8 feet long. So I can make drapes on that one. So, and then there's also, this was a wedding present from my mom and my dad. And this was a little IKEA hack over here. This was just an IKEA console. It was the Billy, I think it was the Billy bookcase, or not the Billy, the one that had the cube, the cubbies. So I painted it to look like faux burl wood, and then had doors made and added them on so that they can just hide things and fold up. I put the rattan in the back side of them. And that's just, it has tons of storage in this room. And then there's also a little twin-sized bed. If we ever have multiple guests, someone could stay in, we call it the princess room because it has a little canopy. But it's just we kind of created this little nook because of the eaves, and it fit a twin-sized bed. We added some fabric just to kind of hide, because it doesn't go straight up there. There's a weird second slant there, so the fabric kind of hides the strange architecture. But overall, this is just it's like my second office. And now for my favorite part of the house, the reason why we bought it is the backyard. Let me show you. You're greeted by the Hospital Point lighthouse in our backyard and the Salem Harbor. And we have a pool too, so we are out here all summer. And we have a little sitting area over here. My husband loves old signs. This is his Coke machine. This Coke machine's made it, I think, through like 5 houses. We've had this since we lived in Salem. And it works. So it's a great little, it's a fun little conversation piece. In the backyard, so we have the fire pit that came with the house. And I guess the folks that lived here before, there was a hot tub here that they replaced and they put the fire pit, but it was made from a piece of the Longfellow Bridge. They carved a piece of granite out for the fire pit. And then all of the chairs here, these were my grandparents. They're old woodard pieces. So these were all this is actually basement, like the rumpus room furniture. And I brought it outside because I loved it, and it reminds me of hanging out at my grandparents'. Now over here is where we kind of have our summer relaxation area here. Last summer, I decided I was going to paint my umbrellas, and I block printed 3 umbrellas, and I added some fringe trim to them. And I also did all of the pillows around the fire pit as well. And then I kind of turned those block prints into patterns that I sell on Spoonflower. But that was all these little undertakings. I'm always working on something. So the house usually never looks this clean. It's usually there's a project going on in some room. Now, then over here, the pool came with the house. We were really lucky. So when my husband said, go out to the backyard, I was like, wow, this is here? Because I never knew this was here walking by this house. And you get such great views. Since you're up high, we have a beach across the street over there, and then Salem Harbor, and that's Marblehead across the way, and then the lighthouse right here. So, and I like how the yard is kind of broken up into levels. I have my gardens down below, and I also have gardens in the back as well. But it's such a great space, and it's so relaxing. And we hang out here. This is where we are most of the time. And then in the winter, that's when we're really using the house. But yeah, we kind of joke around, and they're like, we do staycation, we call it Hotel Herrick. Home to me means a space that I can gather with my friends and family. So really just being able to have the energy and the conversations and friends and family around you, and enjoying your space that you kind of curated over time is really what home means to me.
Today we're on 5th Avenue in New York City, inside a 1927 former hotel that textile designer Lisa Fine has transformed into a richly layered hideaway. Inspired by India, where she first fell in love with textiles over 30 years ago, Lisa drapes her prints across walls, ceilings, and furniture, creating her signature solid cocoon of pattern and color.
I shouldn't admit this, maybe it was a while ago. I'd had a nice lunch, and I think I might have overserved myself with the white wine, and I came out, and there was this camel in the window. And I walked in and I said, I have to have it, and I got it. And it was the first thing I bought for my apartment in the first sale. This woman who became a friend of mine called Florida Brant, she made in her store on the 7th arrondissement in Paris. And we've been friends ever since.
She discovered the apartment in terrible condition during COVID, but its history and old world charm pulled her in. After a thoughtful restoration, it now reflects her love of global craftsmanship, Venetian glassware, and nostalgic details gathered from a life of travel.
And the picture is my love for India. A photographer called Karen Noor did a whole group of Indian, I think it's called Indian Song, and they have them at Danziger Gallery. But this is a synagogue in Cochin that I actually went to visit. I loved it because it was colorful, but I also loved it because I actually was there.
Every inch of this 5th Avenue jewel box tells a story, a mix of India, Paris, Hollywood glamour, and Lisa's unmistakable eye. To watch Lisa's full episode ad-free, scan the QR code on screen or click the join button below. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see, I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Lisa Fine. Please come in and welcome to my New York apartment. Hi, I'm Lisa Fine and welcome to my apartment in New York City. I'm a textile designer. I was a little late to start. I had worked in magazines and I went to India, oh my gosh, 30-something years ago, and the first day I arrived, I really knew that my future was in textiles. Since then, it's been an up and down journey, but it's something I love, and I've traveled all over the world, and you can see textiles in almost everything I do. During COVID, when everyone was leaving New York, I finally said, now is the time that possibly I can get my dream apartment. And I looked and looked and looked. For some reason, this apartment had been on the market on and off for 5 years, and no one was buying in New York. One thing leads to another, and I ended up getting it and spent 2 years renovating it. And luckily, I had the most fantastic architect, J.P. Couture, who had worked in Newport, preserving and restoring historical houses, and then had a great friend, Tom Shear, who had done many apartments in this building and knew it well. And it was a really fun experience. And I know very few people here, renovation is fun, but luckily my contractor and my architect and I did not have one disagreement, and it was great the whole time. Although most of my textiles and my inspiration had been in India, having been at home for, a good part of a year in Dallas, I'd re-seen every old movie. And the 30s, 40s, The Thin Man, all these things, I was becoming very nostalgic and thinking how, wouldn't it be great to just go back in time. And so when this building that was built in 1927 ended up being my apartment, that was my inspiration. And it was fun because I hadn't really looked in that direction in so long. I grew up in Mississippi, and we would go to New Orleans. That was the big city. I would come as a child with my parents to New York, and I don't know why, but I always have wanted to be in a big city. And I loved New York. The minute I arrived, I loved it. I've never wanted to leave. I mean, sure, I go spend a couple of years or longer in Paris or other places, and I go to India. But I think New York is the greatest city in the world. And that's why when people said they're leaving it, I was like convinced that I would never leave, and that's when I bought this apartment. Now we're in the living room. I love to go to visit English country houses or all over in the summer. And one thing I noticed that whether it's a really grand estate or a very simple house, the English almost always have a big console with a bar. And I love to go around and look at the different condiments and what they do and how they stock them. So I was determined to do that here. It's funny, some of the bars that I love the most, you weren't allowed to take pictures, so I had to try to take a mental note, but they go as far as to have everything for the olives and the mixes, and whether you use it or not, which I rarely do because I usually go out, I love the way it looks. Someone asked me recently if I collected anything, and I said no, but then when I moved into this apartment, as I'm unpacking the boxes, I realized I must be collecting Italian glassware. I mean, I think every time I go to Italy, I come back with glasses. These being some of my favorite from Averbini in Venice. We don't fill them up, but I think they're really beautiful. And the picture is my love for India. A photographer called Karen Noor did a whole group of Indian, I think it's called Indian Song, and they have them at Danziger Gallery. But this is of a synagogue in Cochin that I actually went to visit. I loved it because it was colorful, but I also loved it because I actually was there. So it means a lot. This I found in a market in Burma. And, you know, as always, people go, you are not going to buy that and lug that all the way back to New York. But trust me, you get things out of the market, you bring them to your house, your apartment, and all of a sudden, you're so happy you did it because you would never find it. And if you did, you'd never be able to afford it. And this was just in some offbeat market in the middle of nowhere outside of Rangoon. And that was so long ago, and it's still here. I love 2 big matching chintz armchairs. And this is my fabric. It's one of my favorite fabrics. It's called Mirabelle, and it's of a document that I got, but I added the stripe. And so I love stripes, I love flowers, and whenever you can mix them together, it's my favorite combination. And so this are the 2 armchairs. And I had these red velvet banquettes in Paris. There's nothing I love more than a velvet banquette. And I'd seen a lot of interiors with the turquoise and the teal blue. It's not really green, it's not really blue. It was really difficult. And I was in a house in England that Colfax and Fowler did, and I asked for the paint color, and then I looked and I realized it wasn't one color, it was about 25 coats of paint. So I went to San Patrignano and said, I'm gonna make wallpaper that color because it'll be a lot less than having someone stay here for weeks, you know, doing it. It arrived and they put it up without me seeing it because I was in Texas. It was the most horrible color you've ever seen. It was so bright and so awful. And I sent Tom Shear over here, and he said, yes, Lisa, it is that bad. And I said, well, fix it. He goes, I can't. I've got to get a jitney. And I flew from Dallas in August here at 6 a.m. in the morning and met another friend of mine, Richard Keith Langham, and spent all day trying to correct it, and flew back to Dallas that night. And what they did is they painted another color over it and striated. I think we got it right, but to be honest with you, it depends on the light. This room gets so much light. Sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's still a little bright, but I'm basically happy with it. But, you know, another lesson to be learned, and why I'm not a decorator, you have to oversee every step of the process. I just thought that they got it right, but it was terrible. But anyway, I love the mix of the red velvet and the turquoise, and I love the bar. Obviously, I love a good bar. I love dogs. I grew up with 5 dogs, and I was lucky enough to have an ex-boyfriend of mine who had all of my dogs' portraits painted. And here's Malula, and I have my other dog, Kashgar. Unfortunately, neither one of them are with us, and my current dog does not have a portrait, but it's not over yet. So that's center stage. These screens, they're leather painted screens, and I've had them, I bought them in Paris so long ago. And I had them over my house as one big screen in Paris, but here I broke them up and put on the sides. And you know, I love anything that has an exotic oriental flair. And even though India is my inspiration, there's so many things with chinoiserie and China and everything, so I've always liked them. This is my entryway, and in keeping with the 1920s style, I really wanted to have it all mirrored, and I wanted black marble, so I did it. Charlotte Moss wrote this down when I told her. She goes, I've got to write that quote down. I said, Charlotte, I did it before I knew I couldn't afford it, because I knew if I waited till the end, I wouldn't have done it. And I have to say, I hope it does look like it's of the period. So these light fixtures, believe it or not, I bought those like 30 years ago in Paris for my mother's apartment in Florida for her, and they never got hung. For some reason, she didn't like them, and they've been in storage, and I think they were waiting to come here because they're kind of perfect. I think they're of the period. And these sconces, I think I bought those so long ago at Newell Gallery, and I love them because they're like little Moroccan boys, but they aren't Moroccan. I think they're French. As in everything, I love going to markets in Asia where I find all these like bamboo and lacquered bowls And I love animals, as you see. You can't really see this very well, but these are all deer and animals. I love all of that, and what I'm going to show you. There are just so many different, you can go wild. And you know, when I was there, I thought I bought so much, and now I'm thinking I didn't buy enough. But all different types of bamboo and lacquer, which is so wonderful. And I'm just going to show you this. But then there's Fergus Downey on Instagram, which I kind of lost my mind. He has beautiful old porcelain. And I particularly love this because I love the oranges and the magentas, which I love. And all this mixes. This was, you know, a dessert set that was a lot of pieces. But, you know, people can't believe that I get something this nice and something from a market that's like, you know, $2. But I love having it all together. And then my dear friends who I took to India with all got together, and behind my back, I think Lisa McCarthy of Everyday Elegance, who knew what I would love. She knew I loved pomegranates. So they gave me these, which I think are beautiful. And then another friend of mine, Georgia Spogley, knew that I'd gotten these. So she and Miguel Flores Viana said, okay, well then we need to give Lisa artichokes because she likes those too. So I'm just going around my apartment showing you all these like generous, wonderful gifts I have from all these great friends. And then I recently had to give a lunch for the World Monuments. This week was the big thing. And Posh, okay, I never do a table without my silver mint julep cups. I think it's kind of a Southern thing. Even though I didn't have mint juleps growing up as a child, I kind of like the idea and feel like I missed out on something that I never had a mint julep, so I made up for it with these cups. And I always have these filled with flowers for any lunch or dinner I do. And here's a portrait of my beloved rescue dog, Kashkar. They're also done by Joe Ando. This chest, Jonathan Burden, who I love, and if you like, I love Anglo-Indian furniture, and he is the most charming, divine dealer, and he specializes in Anglo-Indian as well as other things. I have to have bookshelves everywhere, so what we did is I had my architect extend this out to create these bookshelves that we made, and I don't have that many shelves, but I brought some of my most favorite books, and they're all nonfiction. It's lots of biographies and books on spies, books on travel, but really, really mainly biographies, and a lot of World War II books. I think my Southern roots have a real impact on the fact that I tend to like things that are pretty and romantic. I think we've lived through ages, ups and downs, ons and off, where, you know, people want to be more cool and monochromatic and beige and gray and things like that. I've never went through that phase. I've always loved color. I've always loved flowers. I've always loved stripes. And I think that is a part of growing up in the South, but not necessarily my parents. What is interesting with my parents, or more my mother, is I did grow up with a lot of black lacquer furniture and black marble fireplace and things like that. So that probably influenced my love of black lacquer. Not that Francis Elkins and Art Deco bathrooms didn't, because I think they just sort of enhanced that sort of interest that I probably had subliminally from a childhood. Well, it's funny, people always ask me, oh, did your parents love interiors? Did they love decorating? And, you know, to be quite honest with you, no, not in the least. My father wouldn't have noticed what a room looked like if it blew up in front of him. He liked books, dogs, and golf. My mother could care less. All she cared about is what she wore, and she loved fashion, so maybe that sort of instilled a sense of design in me, because I spent most of my childhood watching her try on clothes, whether it be at home or in a dressing room. She did take painting, and I would take painting with her, and we would always go visit museums whenever we'd go to New Orleans or New York or any big city. We would always go to the museums. But my obsession for, you know, interiors is totally not from my parents. Now, I have heard that my grandmother loved gardening and china and silver, and things like that, but she was long gone by the time I was there, as was most of the silver and the china, and the rose gardens were dead, and the azaleas were slowly going. So I don't know, but I've always loved design of all types. My tiny kitchen is actually quite big for the building because I gave up a washing machine and dryer to actually have a full-size refrigerator, which is very unusual for this space. And I wanted a butler's pantry, not a kitchen. A butler's pantry with all the things that a kitchen has. So I found a picture of a 1930s butler's pantry in a Chicago apartment building, and my architect, J.P. Couture, was able to have it copied off-site and installed. But he copied it so well, he even did the latches like they would have. And the big challenge, though, was to have the stainless steel all the way across. And it was quite complicated, but we didn't give up, and it was actually the last addition in the apartment because it looks real easy and simple, but as they say, what is simple is often the most difficult to achieve. Okay, and now my favorite thing to do is a bath at night before I go to bed. And I love a big bathroom, and I love big bathtubs, and it wasn't easy to create that in a tiny space, but I got rid of a lot of things. And one friend who I respect her taste more than anything in the world walked in and said, "Why do you have a bathtub in your entrance hall?" Well, I don't look at it that way. It's just an extension of my bedroom off my entrance hall. I lived off and on in Paris for quite some time, and the first time I went to stay at a friend's house, I woke up and everything in the bedroom was all one fabric. The walls, the ceiling, the bed, everything. And I couldn't understand why I slept so well. Maybe it was just that night, I don't know. But I said after that, I will always, if I'm able, have my fabrics or some fabric all over a bedroom, one print everywhere. And you know, you look, there are a lot of people that do that, and you see it more in Europe than you see it in the United States, even though I think it's becoming more of a trend here. But there's something very cocoon-like about being enveloped in one pretty print. And a lot of my friends walk into this particular bedroom and like, oh, I like it, but I would have nightmares if I slept in that room. How could you sleep in all this? But I promise you, it becomes a solid. And that's not just because I want to sell a lot of textiles, and which people say I tell them that just so they'll do it. But no, it really is something very nurturing to just see one pretty print everywhere. Okay, this bedroom is in my Charlotte fabric. Well, I have two Charlottes. The Charlotte who runs my business, and Charlotte, my friend de Carcacci in London, who has wisteria all over her house. And I thought of both of them when I did this. And I love, you know, lilac. So I actually think this is probably a more peaceful bedroom than mine. But the other one is more fitting to my personality, probably. So I wanted to definitely have twin beds, and I had to argue with so many friends, and everyone thought I was crazy. No one does twin beds anymore, but I specifically wanted people to come with their children, their grandchildren, two friends that might not want to share a bed. And I had seen some beds in an old magazine, and I couldn't find them anywhere. So I had Jose Quintano copy them perfectly for me, and I love them. And then my great friend Jane Scott Hodges at Leontine Linens had the perfect lavender silk comforter. And I feel like this room actually captures the 1930s more than any room, because they actually did have twin beds and they did have silk comforters. And then I wanted the white piqué, which is also Jane Scott did. And I had a bunch of things in storage. And I think that this bedside table was Dorothy Draper for Kendall Furniture. And it was really not very interesting, but I took a picture of some Colfax and Fowler tables and gave it to my painter. And I said, can't you just make this piece of furniture look like it was Colfax and Fowler? And I think he did a pretty good job. And then We changed the knobs, and dogs once again. I love poodles. I have that, and these are astrological pictures. Unfortunately, I only have half the horoscope. What I love most is everyone says, you know, brown furniture's out of fashion. So I had the best time looking for furniture because no one wanted a lot of it. Jonathan Burden, who I had found some things from, came to do a lot of restoration for me, and he was fixing the latch here, and he opened this up, and I found this in an auction house in Chicago, and he was like, I can't believe this. This is Gillows from Lancashire, which was a very fine cabinet maker, but it never been marked as that. It's what you call a debtor's desk, I think, and they have, look, they have all the inlaid wood for the alphabet for the files. It was all the debts. It's called a debtor's desk, and it went totally unmarked, which I was very lucky because I had no idea. I was just trying to fill the wall with brown furniture that fit scale. I love books. That's actually what I collect. I buy books of all kinds. I love books that I read, and I love old books. I love particularly travel books, memoirs, biographies. I don't read much fiction, but here is Vita Sackville-West's Passage to Tehran, and here is Curzon's Travels of a Superior Person. This is about Egypt. This is about Tehran, and I love, love, love anything about travel, any sort of memoir, and I love nostalgia, you know, sort of old-fashioned things. And it's funny is I have the books that I read that are more current in my bookshelves in the hall, and I have more of my old books and memoirs and travel books because so many of my friends that stay here feel the same way I do. So it's more books that they would be interested in. I recently discovered a new florist, and it's not a shop, and you go, I think it's on 82nd Street, and it's the bottom of a townhouse, and it's called Posh. And I'd seen her flowers somewhere. I asked, I went to meet her, and so I had to have flowers for this and flowers for a luncheon I did. And so if anyone's looking for flowers in New York, go to Posh, and they're wonderful to work with. I love print of any kind, and I love wall-to-wall carpet in bedrooms just because it's comfortable. I have a great friend in England, Charlotte de Carcajou, who I call her to bounce ideas back and forth with. And we were talking about carpet, and she goes, I hate any carpet that matches. And I thought, that's interesting. And then I called Tom Shear, who I ask a lot of questions about, and he said, Lisa, you need to just do leopard. Well, he gave me this leopard source, and I thought, okay, great, and I love it. But I didn't want to do exactly the same leopard in both bedrooms, but I wanted there to be a continuity. I wanted it to be the same but slightly different. So that's when I went to Star Carpet, and I got the leopard with the roses. I think that in an apartment this size, it's nice to have continuity. And I didn't want it the same, but I wanted it reminiscent or more reflective of each other. When I was working at Mirabella magazine, I worked for an architect named James Sharon, and he was from Chicago. And he would talk about Francis Elkins and David Adler all the time. In fact, he's the one that actually found the mirrored bathroom that most of us have seen in Miles Redd's townhouse. So I've always loved that, and I've always credited James for, you know, introducing me to that style. But then again, during COVID, I resaw all the Thin Man and all these sort of 1930s interiors. And when I saw that this apartment was built in 1927 and it wasn't so big, I mean, it was small, I said, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to sort of experiment with that and recreate it. And I tried to be very true to the 1927 integrity and style, and at the same time incorporate my favorite person of that period is Francis Elkins and David Adler. What can I say? J.P. Couture gets all the credit for working so hard to create this. I was looking for an old tub, and I wanted to get an old, big, old-fashioned tub, and probably spent 6 to 8 months finding one. I couldn't find it. And then when we found it, it didn't fit in. It wasn't big enough. The space wasn't big enough. And finally he called me and said, Lisa, I'm doing an intervention. If you don't come with me to Waterworks and pick a tub, I can't do your apartment. It is delaying the entire renovation. And we can't even get the permits until you pick the tub. So anyway, I got the tub at Waterworks, and not that I wouldn't have loved a big old tub, but I'm happy. I love the way it looks. And the idea was to create a bedroom, bathroom, dressing room, toilet, do it all in one area. And so I can close that door, and whoever's staying with me can do whatever they want because I have my whole little area here. Okay, this also came from Jonathan Brown. I love him. I wanted everything in his store. I was gonna have a built-in mirrored vanity, you know, like you see that, you know, in all the 30s and Francis Elkins did. And they were so crazy expensive that I found this like 18th century desk for a third the price of Jonathan Burton. And I actually like it more. It seemed like it was meant to be here. It fit perfectly. Honestly, I did this thinking I could have an old-fashioned vanity and sit like a lady and get ready and do my makeup, but I still do it on the run. I'm still standing up and grabbing this and off I go. I like the idea. In theory, I haven't used it as much, but it does look pretty. I got this at an auction at Stair Gallery for nothing. I wanted it even though it's too big for the space, but you know, no one wants brown furniture. And it's a really nice piece, so I was thrilled. My initial inspiration, definitely for my textile collection, came from India. But after a while, I just thought I had to look other places because so many other people were also inspired by India. And then it came very easy because my favorite thing to do really is in the summer is go visit English country houses and look at their architecture, their furniture, their fabrics. And during COVID, when I also didn't see for the first time so many of the classics and period pieces, I became more interested in reviving old archival chintzes and floral prints and things like that. But what I've loved about it is I've integrated them with my fabrics from India. And it's not anything new, but it's my interpretation of it. And that's what I love because I can take my original inspiration from India, Turkey, the Middle East, you know, all these places where they have amazing geometrics and things that I normally wouldn't be attracted to. But when I mix them with old-fashioned floral chintzes from France or England or India, from Tree of Life from India and the chintzes from India, it creates a whole nother look for me in my collection. Well, this is my bedroom, which is my favorite room always because I do everything in my bedroom from work on my fabrics to pay bills to talk on the phone, and my bathtub is near. I just created a whole little bedroom suite like I would never have to leave if I didn't have to. And as I said, I love a bedroom that's all one fabric. And it usually has pink in it. And unlike most of my bedrooms, I didn't do florals, but I wanted to do these leaves. And it's everywhere. Some people find it busy, but to me, it reads like a solid. And in my bedroom are all my personal favorite things. That most of them are gifts from friends. And one of them is a collage that a great friend of mine, Jean-Charles de Ravenel, who makes these amazing collages. And I wanted to do a collage with all of my trips to India, everything I love, and my favorite soap, which is Kama, another friend of mine, and you know, my favorite teas, all these wonderful masala teas that are delicious. And obviously, you can't do anything with India without jewelry and spas. I've gone to spas all over India with my mother, so there are pictures there. And, you know, locals and architecture. And he really captured it. But what was really funny is he called me and he said, but Lisa, there's nothing about you. And I said, I don't want anything about me. Please, I want it to be about India. So when it arrived, there are all these pictures of me. He'd gotten on the internet and found old magazine articles of me, and I have to admit I actually really liked it. I wouldn't have done it, but I'm glad he did. And then my desk is just all things people have given me. My dear friends, Jamie and Krill and Marco, Krill and Gal, they know I love camels, so that's a camel inkwell, which I don't use as an inkwell. That's a sea urchin pencil holder, all from Krill and Gal. And then Peter Prenoyer, the architect, sent me this fabulous clock that he custom made. And then my great friends for my, I won't say which birthday, but it was a big, big birthday. Bettina Zilka and Alex Hitz, they found in silver box for me in London. And my obsession, I'm so happy in my apartment, and I don't think I'll ever get to build my dream house. I'm going to have to be happy here, but I love Lutyens. And so New Delhi is one of my absolute favorite cities in the world. And this was something I've got at auction at Doyle, and it's of a Lutyens bungalow. And then I love colonial, British colonial, and this is a company school painting from Calcutta, which I bought that for myself on a big birthday, and I'm glad I did because they're really hard to come by. And I have another friend, my friend Jack Swain, knows that I love Bernard Boutet de Monvel, and he had a big auction in Paris several years ago, and he got me these drawings, and this is of a camel, which I love camels, as I recently said, and these are heaven and hell, which they aren't to everyone's taste, but I kind of think they're wonderful, hell and heaven. And I think the pink flowers sort of soften up the devil there. When I'm in India, I love just buying simple, naive art or any kind of art because it's everywhere. And these are pictures of elephants. And apparently there was an elephant competition where all these art students were told to paint the same elephant. And there are hundreds of these, and these are just 4 of them. And I had been to a friend of mine's house recently who had a whole wall of them that they'd gotten at, I think, at Stair at the Whitney sale. But I love those. When I'm working with my textiles, I get sent lots of samples and strike-offs, and I need a lot of light. And there's no better place than in this little canopy by the window. So the bedroom is my favorite room, and it also has the best light and is the most comfortable, small place to sit. So I often sit by the window and go through my samples. And as you can see, everything kind of blends together. As I was saying earlier, I was mixing, archival chintzes and florals with Egyptian, sort of geometrics. And you can see here, and one of my favorite things besides camels are pomegranates. So what's great fun about my fabrics is everything I love, I find some way to reinterpret it. And here's sort of a play on an evil eye. And so I did these in all different colors to go. Evil eye with a woven chevron print. And I mix it with these old-fashioned archival prints that I love playing with. I never get tired of floral prints, but I'm trying to do more wovens now. In doing my textiles, I look at lots of archival things and I love them and I want to copy them. Like, for example, this is something I saw that I wanted to bring back because I love pink and red and yellow together, and it's beautiful flowers. And then this, I love leaves and coral and green. But for the most part, I often, I love camels. I don't have a camel fabric, but I have a batik that has lots of animals in it. And I love stripes, any kind of stripe, but a chevron stripe, especially a woven, is just a little more interesting than your regular stripe, and it's more durable than just a cotton print. So I'm doing those. And one of my other favorite things are pomegranate motifs. So I found this wonderful old fabric that's, you can't really tell it's a pomegranate that well, but if you look, yes, you can. And I love the way it mixes with the chevron. Even though it's all inspiration from, Turkey and the Middle East, it could be anywhere. It could be in New York, it could be in Palm Beach, it could be anywhere. And it's fun to mix all of these. As I said earlier, the minute I arrived in India and I sort of got over the shock of it and I went out into the streets and went to the markets, I knew I wanted to work in textiles. And every day I was there, I saw more things that inspired me. It took me a while to actually begin my collection, but in the first collection, which started approximately maybe 20 years ago, and the best-selling fabric, one of them to this day, was just of a single poppy that had been painted on a palace wall. And I took a picture of it, and I took it to Lisa Miller, an artist in Los Angeles, and I said, can you put that in repeat? And she did, and we named it Simode because it came from Simode Palace. And to this day, I have it in fabric in like 10 colors. I do it in wallpaper with paper. I do it in wallpaper with grass cloth. And Tom Shear orders it all the time. Everyone I don't even know orders it. And it just goes to show you when you find something that people love, it's classic, it never goes out of style. And it's very simple, but it's also romantic in the way it is a flower and it's a repeat. Well, as I said earlier, I love camels, and my first camel to actually buy was the first thing I bought for my apartment in Paris. And I shouldn't admit this, it was maybe it was a while ago. I'd had a nice lunch, and I think I might have had overserved myself with the white wine, and I came out and there was this camel in the window. And I walked in and I said, I have to have it, and I got it. And the irony is, it was the first day that this woman who became a friend of mine called Florida Brant, who had an antique store there, and I think still, I don't know if she still has an antique store, but anyway, she's a great dealer in antiques. And it was the first thing I bought for my apartment in the first sale she made in her store on the 7th arrondissement in Paris. And we've been friends ever since. I don't see her very often, and I keep up with her, but so that's the camel story. And I want to show you this book here because travel has been such an integral part of my journey, my inspiration, everything. And I first started exotic travel with the World Monuments Fund. And I just received this book 2 days ago at their big summit. And it's out this year, and it has so many amazing monuments all over the world, and usually in countries with great markets, great textiles, great arts and crafts. And I guess my textile collection is really a result of all that. Well, my bed might seem very boring and simple, but it didn't start out simple. I wanted to copy the original bed that they had at the Coates Reed House in Chicago that Francis Elkins and David Adler did. I had it made in India. It arrived, and I had all bed and no room. And I tried to talk myself into liking it, and there's no way. Luckily, I ended up selling it to a friend of mine's daughter, and when I got my second bed, I said, I no longer want a California king. I don't want a king. I want a bed like is it a 1950s hotel in Europe. Low, small, and now I have this simple bed, and it actually is perfect for the room, and I love it. But I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, and one reason why I'm not a decorator, is because often what you love doesn't fit in the room, in the location, or anything. And one thing I had to learn the hard way is you have to let your proportions and your location speak to you, not get the bed that you've always wanted. The bedroom is always my favorite room because I feel free to make it as girly and feminine as I want, as comfortable as I want, and I just do everything from it, like as I said, and it's comfortable. I can be here forever. One of the things I love most about New York are the people, obviously. I have friends from all over the world, all ages, all interests, industries, and New York is the one city that if you love people and you love, going out, you can go to dinner and be with a different group every night, or you can mix 5 different groups at a dinner. And I think that's a rare quality in a city, and I love that. And I love walking through Central Park more than anything. I mean, when I lived in Paris, I walked all over, but it's a walking city, and what can I say? I've been here most of my adult life. I've lived in Paris. I've traveled all over the world, and I got this apartment here hoping I will go out feet first. Well, home is a sentiment, okay? A lot of people misuse that word. And if I had to say home, to me, it's where I feel comfortable, where I can stay in bed all day and read a book, have my dogs, watch a movie, eat some delicious food. Home to me is familiar and it's warm. And it's being with the people I love, doing what I love to do when I'm not out and about.
Today, we're stepping into the kaleidoscopic world of Danny Daisy, textile designer, author, fashion creator, and the visionary behind Trixie Motel's Palm Springs Motel. Celebrated for her fearless embrace of color and unapologetically maximalist style, Daisy has channeled her artistry into her very own Daisy Dreamhouse, a retro-inspired Los Angeles home that feels like a living extension of her imagination.
Welcome to my cloffice. This room is a closet office hybrid. We needed more storage space. With a lot of old homes, they did not have enough closets. Having a closet room is every girl's dream. I'm able to have all of my clothes here in this beautiful space, but we couldn't just have it be a closet that felt a little wasteful. So the hybrid was really the way to go here, and that way we get the most use out of the space.
Every corner of this 70s-infused retreat radiates personality, with dynamic patterns, groovy silhouettes, curated treasures, and rich, saturated hues that transform everyday living into something extraordinary. And just when you think you've uncovered it all, Danny unveils a hidden speakeasy tucked inside the house, a glittering nod to disco-era glamour and her love of playful, transportive design.
This might look like just an average bookcase, but it is a secret door to our super special retro rec room. How fun is this space? And I love that it's such a departure from the kitchen that our hidden door feels like a portal into a different decade.
From hand-painted murals to bespoke textiles and nostalgic details, the pink Dreamhouse is more than a home. It's Danny's canvas, a place where fashion, art, and interiors collide to create a world that's vibrant and uniquely hers. This home dares you to dream bigger, embrace maximalism, and celebrate the beauty of self-expression. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. A big thanks to Uncommon Goods for sponsoring today's episode. The holidays will be here before we know it, and I like to give gifts that feel personal and thoughtful. And at Uncommon Goods, you can find just about anything. They're an online marketplace filled with meaningful, creative gifts from independent artists and small businesses. Whether you're shopping for a reader, a foodie, or a gardener, they have tons of categories for gift giving, and everything is one of a kind. I'm looking for a gift for Michael. He loves chips and salsa, so this snack server is perfect. And then I thought I would pair it with a Mexican mortar and pestle so we can make homemade guacamole. Every purchase supports small makers. Plus, Uncommon Goods donates $1 to a nonprofit of your choice with every order. They've already given back over $3 million. So whether you're shopping for your secret Santa or your entire family, Uncommon Goods makes holiday gifting easy, meaningful, and delicious.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Danny Daisy, and welcome to my magical Maximal home in LA. I'm Danny Daisy. I'm an interior and print designer and author of The Maximalist, and this is my home in Los Angeles, California. My husband and I have had this home for 2 years now, and we've definitely done a lot. It was a blank white space, and we've added so much color and print. The architectural style is kind of interesting. You'll see throughout the tour, it's a very funky house. It has a lot of weird nooks and crannies. It's like a little bit craftsman. It was labeled traditional on Zillow when we bought it, but we really tried to lean into that charm and bring like the charming character back into the space. Welcome to my living room, my favorite room of the house, and also the cover girl of my book, The Maximalist. I love having one of these books sitting out on the coffee table in the room because people always walk up to it and they're like, wait a second, we're in this space. So these ceilings were one of the biggest reasons why we bought this house. They are so tall and expansive. It already came with all of this really beautiful wood and vaulted ceilings, but we did end up adding the skylights, which made a huge difference in bringing light into this space and also added architectural interest to the space that wasn't necessarily there before. We also swapped out all of the lighting in the ceiling. It was all recessed lighting, and we swapped it for these really beautiful semi-flush fixtures. We tiled this entire facade of the fireplace. Before it was just this black metal box, so we painted the metal to match. We added this mantle, we added the lighting, and created a whole moment where there really was none. This is a vintage peacock fireplace cover. I'm obsessed with them. And with the tile colors, we really wanted to bring in the colors of the room. So we have this really beautiful hunter green, more of a minty color, yellow, and then cream. And you can see those colors tied in throughout the rest of the room. For me, tying in color again and again is how I pull off these crazy pattern-filled spaces, but make them feel seamless and make sense. The biggest piece of furniture we have in this room and the whole entire house is this massive U-shaped couch in this gorgeous golden yellow color. We did a half wall here and added trim to this space, which kind of gives it that charm as if it was always there. It really fits the house and the theme. And as you can see, my color scheme is tied in there as well, tied into the couch. It's also tied into the wallpaper. The wallpaper is a custom print I designed. And you can see that wallpaper is also on these chairs. So I love to put my prints everywhere I can, whether it's the wall, on pieces of furniture, and this print is also on the cover of my book. My most used space in the house is our smallest room. This is the nook. It is so cute. When we first bought this house, it was staged as a little office, and we would have never used it that way. So instead, we found the perfect shaped couch that fits just right in here. We wallpapered it, painted the ceiling, and now it's just this cozy little nook, and I live here. So this space is a little more monochromatic. We do have some pops of yellow, but I've heard people refer to this as the womb room, and I mean, obviously very appropriate right now, but I feel like there's something about just being enveloped in this cozy, warm tone that feels like a big hug. And this space is all about being cozy, and it just fits that vibe perfectly. My background is in art and fashion and apparel graphics, textile design, and eventually ended up doing interiors and kind of took a lot of that knowledge of print and color and designing a big colorful clothing collection into designing my spaces. And I really have a lot of color confidence, I would say. So I'm not afraid to go for it in a space. With this particular space, what I really wanted to accomplish is traditional with a twist. So we kind of lean into some of those more traditional elements like trim and wallpaper, but we also have like the bright colors, and a lot of the wallpaper prints, which actually designed, are a little more on the abstract side, but still kind of have that traditional vibe. And underneath our little plant wall, there was this awkward soffit in the living room that didn't really work to put a piece of art or something. So we decided to add a whole plant shelf wall. And I love what a cool transition it makes, especially when they get really overgrown, into our dining room. This dining room is connected to the living room, but the colors shift a little bit over here. As you can see, there's more of this pink terracotta color. And even our walls, they go from having the two shades of green and the yellow to having a pink instead. So the room slowly shifts as you walk into it. And I did that on purpose so it felt a little different and a little bit like its own space compared to the rest of the living room. Another way we really made this room feel a little separate than the rest of the space is by wallpapering the ceiling, creating its own little moment. I got this really cool light fixture. I added a ceiling medallion, which is one of my favorite hacks to bring a little more character into a space. This is also a place where we end up working a lot. And one of my favorite things to do with the dining table is to skip the dining chairs, they're not comfortable, and just use slipper chairs or just regular living room chairs as the dining chairs. And when we're working here all day long, it's super comfortable. You never want to leave. Even when we're hosting friends, it's just so cozy and you could sit here for hours chatting. In this little corner, we have our bar cart, cute little shelves with a wavy motif, and we fit the shelves inside of the molding, which I thought was pretty clever and a good use of space. Pink and green will forever be one of my favorite color combos. We've had full pink living rooms in the past, and for this house, my husband was like, maybe not a full pink living room. So I saved the pink for this little area as a little bit of a compromise. I think I learned to be more risky with my design choices by designing clothing. You're designing by the season, so it doesn't feel as serious or intense. And I feel like when people make decisions for their home, they feel like it's this permanent, forever decision that they're gonna wanna love for decades to come. And I had just never designed that way. I was used to designing seasonally, so I kind of applied that same carefree, like what I love right now approach to my interiors. And surprisingly, I've actually loved them for longer than I would if I would have just followed trends or tried to play it a little more safe. Like, these are spaces that I just go for the things that light me up and get me excited. And the dining room opens to our colorful kitchen. When we originally bought this house, this whole wall was a wall, and there was one little square door entry to the kitchen, and we blasted it open, created a bunch of areas to entertain and hang out. Now it's so open. I love to hang out here while my husband cooks for me. And we also added this little nook in the corner. I'm a sucker for a kitchen booth. And I wanted to have both the bar and the booth, but we're working kind of within a tight space. But my husband is very good with configuring things in tight spaces, and he figured it all out. So I got my booth. I love it. We use the same gorgeous terrazzo counters from the bar to the kitchen booth table to the rest of the counters. We got these custom cushions made with a little wavy pattern. This is another one of my original prints. Did this really cool plate collage on the wall. The vibe I was going for in this kitchen is your grandma's Italian kitchen, and I feel like the diamond floors really lend itself to that. Just like the little charming elements like the scalloped lighting, and of course, terrazzo counters. I'm obsessed with these. Something else that we also did was add trim to all of our cabinets. They were plain shaker cabinets, and we wanted to bring in that charm. So we just glued these trim pieces right in and then painted it all bright green. And then over here, this might look like just an average bookcase, but it is a secret door to our super special retro rec room. So I grew up in Los Angeles, and I feel like that definitely has lent itself to my colorful, funky, vintage-inspired design style. I came from a very artistic home where that was fostered in me and my sister growing up, always to like draw and paint and really experiment with color. My parents weren't afraid to play with color in my house growing up. My mom painted all our kitchen cabinets raspberry one day. So it was something that was surrounding me growing up, and I think that really helped shape who I am today and why I love color and the style so much. How fun is this space? And I love that it's such a departure from the kitchen that our hidden door feels like a portal into a different decade. This room felt really random. It was just a room off of the kitchen. And I think by adding the secret door and doing something so fun with it, it makes it feel really intentional. It's like a little speakeasy. People love the party trick of opening that door and revealing this really epic, fun space. We love to host game nights in here. We hang out, listen to music. We have a bunch of instruments on the wall. I am such a big fan of 70s design, and this was one room in the house I was like, all right, we're gonna go for full 70s. And since it's sort of this hidden speakeasy, to me it was allowed to kind of be different from the rest of the house. This couch print is one of my original prints. As you can see, it's not only on the couch, this is a collab I did with Joybird, it's also on the wall and the curtains. And I'm such a fan of monochromatic print moments. A lot of people like to do monochromatic color, but I like to go full force with a print on everything in a space. So we bought this home from a musician, and he already had this little stage with the record collection built in, so it was just perfect for this space. We also have these guitars in their little cases. I thought it was such an iconic little rock and roll Hall of Fame kind of vibe, and these guitars are just so gorgeous, they deserve to be displayed. And last but not least, we have a disco ball in the center of the room. What 70s rec room would be complete without it? This thing is working. We have the light, the spinner, and it's a real good time. What's so cool about this home is it's in like a little hillside area, and it feels like a little tree house. Like it's our own little sanctuary. You'll see our outdoor space. It's very naturey and fun, and I really wanted to lean into that like greenery that the house is surrounded by. So we ended up painting the whole exterior of our house green. We used a lot of green from our living room to our kitchen, and that was kind of like the main color I was focusing on for this particular house. I think my favorite room in the whole house has to be the living room. It was initially these big, tall, vaulted ceilings that made us want to come look at the listing when we bought it. And I just loved the like wood tones on the ceilings. We ended up adding skylights, which brought so much light to the space. We swapped out all of the lighting fixtures and really just wanted to focus on making this ceiling the centerpiece of the house. And next room up is our primary suite. Here's our main bedroom. This room is purple and gold, and purple is a color I don't use a lot in design, but I like to try everything, and it was a challenge for me to use purple in a way that felt really elevated and sophisticated, and I think we pulled it off. We added this really cool half wall trim. We have striped grass cloth on the bottom, one of my original wallpaper prints on top. We have also the same print on the bedding. Again, my monochromatic print moments that I love so much. Have really fun striped curtains, and this room is like very cohesive and intentional, and I feel like that really helped us make it feel very polished and finished. This room is kind of tight, and our senior dog right here was having trouble getting into bed, and we couldn't really find the right staircase situation that was cute or end of bed bench that actually fit. So my husband made this one, and we upholstered it with this striped fabric, and now she can get into bed and we can walk through, and it looks really cute. Another fabulous ceiling medallion, and then we added a lot of different wood tones to this space. To me, it sort of grounds the very feminine purple. Purple can feel a little juvenile, and the wood elements kind of make it feel a little more grounded and adds a different feel. Our next room was so fun, I can't wait to show you. Welcome to my cloffice. This room is a closet office hybrid. We needed more storage space. With a lot of old homes, they did not have enough closets. But I also needed a space where I could work. So my husband helped me add all of these cabinets to the wall, and he framed them in. We added molding. We did a half wall with paint, wallpaper on the upper wall, and wallpaper on the ceiling. We got this wild chandelier that just is the centerpiece of this room. A trick to having a big chandelier in a small space is putting like a desk or a table underneath it. And got this really cool office table that also works well for folding laundry and working. Having a closet room is every girl's dream. I'm able to have all of my clothes here in this beautiful space, but we couldn't just have it be a closet. That felt a little wasteful. So the hybrid was really the way to go here, and that way we get the most use out of the space. And right across from my cloffice, we have the bathroom. This bathroom was already green when we got it. All of the wall tile was here and I thought it was so cool. But we did end up adding this terrazzo floor, this really beautiful vanity with the matching vanity top, really cool vessel sink, and really leaned into the green. I always loved both home and fashion growing up and thought I had to choose one or the other, because that's kind of what they tell you in high school. Like, all right, what are you gonna major in? Like, what's your career choice? So I ended up choosing fashion initially, and I always loved fashion and art, so that led me to apparel graphics, textile design. But I still loved designing my own spaces, and that was still a huge passion of mine. So throughout the years of building my clothing line, was able to buy my first house in Palm Springs, very fun and funky and mid-century. And my clothing line was very colorful and vintage inspired as well. And just kind of designed this space very similar to the vibe of my clothing line and shared it on social media. I was always very transparent, running my business on social media. It was like initially my clothing line's Instagram, but I treated it like a personal Instagram. So I was sharing my spaces and kind of my life in color, like a very maximalist lifestyle. And that was really kind of how I ended up shifting into more of the interior space, because people loved that sort of mix of fashion and home, and there's so much overlap with the two. I'm definitely inspired by vintage design. I love the 60s and the 70s. It was such a fun, bold era in design. But I also love like Art Deco style, 1920s, traditional style design. I really love it all. And I think as a designer, I'm just always wanting to try new things. So I'm constantly exploring new styles, new color schemes, new ways to design a space and make it special. And the tour keeps going to the downstairs portion of our house. This is the downstairs den. It is such a fun and colorful space and a little bit of a departure from the rest of the house. So we have our own little kitchen down here, these really fun statement vintage pieces. We eventually want to redo this to make it even more cute, but for now, the really cool appliances definitely help. The biggest change we made in here were the floors. They were dark, dark wood, almost black, and it made this feel more like a basement or a dungeon. So my husband ground down all the floors. We painted this amazing checkered pattern and we resurfaced it, and it now matches the upstairs, and it brought so much light into this space and made it feel like a warm, cozy space that you want to hang out in. When we first got this house with the dark floors, and this was metal, and this space was just very industrial, and it wasn't cozy or welcoming. So I really wanted to counteract that with my design choices. This, one of my original wallpaper prints, is a little folksy, a little grandma, if you will. The beadboard, the curtains, the whole vibe is a little more cozy granny. And I also have my grandmother's art on the wall, which kind of makes sense in this space. My grandma was an amazing artist, and she really loved and knew how to use color, and she's definitely one of my biggest inspirations in design. It's wild to have 2 living rooms, but we actually use this space a lot when we rent out our upstairs for photo shoots. We also use this as a guest suite. This is a pull-out couch. We have a guest room attached to it. It really has everything you would need. It's like its whole own separate space. It even has a little dining area, an office area. I also intentionally switched up the wallpaper on this side of the room to kind of give it a little bit of that separation and make it feel like a little bit of a different moment. Lighting fixtures are such a cool way that you can easily elevate your space just by swapping them out. And then you have a whole statement right here, like above our dining room. The color scheme in this room, I wanted it to feel kind of vintage Americana. We don't have any blue upstairs in our house, so I really leaned into the blue down here. And again, that ties into my grandmother's artwork. She used a lot of blue. So I feel like wherever we live, I need to have a blue room so I can have her art there. I feel like it was always a big dream of mine to write a book, but it's just one of those dreams that seems like it's never gonna come true. But I think just by being bold and putting my work out there and it standing out really helped build an audience, and that's how my publisher found me. So I got to accomplish my dream of writing a book, and I really put my everything into that book. I talk all about my journey as a designer from fashion design and then how I got into interiors. And in my book I share some of my earliest spaces where I wasn't as well-versed as I am now, and I was still learning. And I think it's really cool to share that process and the journey along the way. And some of these first spaces I designed where I was maybe just doing like one color for the whole room. Now I'm trying to put like 4 or 5 colors in a room. And I really wanted to share my whole journey along the way and hope that that encourages readers to be a little more bold and a little more daring in their everyday life, from what they wear to what they decide to paint a wall in their house. I think that that's something that you can cultivate and build confidence and work towards, and I just hope to be an inspiration for others. This is our guest room. This home was full of so many unique little spaces and nooks, and I guess this used to be the previous owner's studio space, which is why it has these little windows and had the little stage upstairs. It's a very quirky home. This is also a little room, like half the size, like a room cut in half, and it's not done yet, but we plan on making it a really cozy little zen spot off of our guest bedroom. We went for print clashing in this room. As you can see, the wallpaper and the carpet, it's like a similar print, kind of similar color scheme. There's a lot going on, and they're kind of fighting each other, but in a really fun visual way. And I made that work by actually adding more print. Sometimes the only way out is through, and to just keep going and leaning into that maximalism. So we added a checkered rug on top of the carpet. We added really cool bedding and just kind of kept layering on different prints, and that's how we made it work. These carpet tiles are one of my favorite kind of hidden secrets, I would say. So these are about this size carpet tiles, and you just lay them down and you can cut them to fit the edge of the room. You can make them a big rug. I like to use them as a carpet. I feel like carpets are coming back in unique and unexpected ways like this, and it feels very vintage hotel. Since it's a guest room, I really wanted it to feel like our guests were here on holiday and like it was a departure from their everyday life. This wood wall was already there, and I really liked it as an accent wall, and to kind of keep it more earthy, I found this cool woven art piece by Pelican House. They are numbered and they only do a certain amount, and I thought it was just a really pretty piece for this room. Working on the Trixie Motel was another one of those wild dream come true projects that sort of just fell into my lap by putting my work out there on social media. A casting producer found me and contacted me and asked if I was interested in redoing a vintage motel in Palm Springs, which was just like the coolest concept ever. And then like as the project went on, they revealed more of the details, that it was with Trixie Motel, and it was this amazing pink vintage motel that I was already familiar with. And I just have so many ties to Palm Springs from my first home being there. My mom is from there. I love vintage design and bringing vintage spaces back to life. So everything about this project was such a dream for me. It was definitely one of the coolest things I've ever done. We spent 4.5 months out in the desert working on the project. My husband was there with me because he helps me with everything. My God, I would not be able to do all of this without him. It was a wild ride, and it was all filmed for TV. We're on HBO Max, Trixie Motel. You have to check it out. It's such a good show. The timeline was so real. In 4.5 months, we turned an outdated and pretty rundown motel into a beautiful themed motel. Every single room is a different theme. We really went for it. It is such a fun, happy, playful space. And I feel like we were able to accomplish the themes and just the overall theminess of it, and it being a drag motel, but in a very classy, upscale way. I love to make kitsch really elevated and beautiful, because I think you can have both. You can have fun, colorful design, and it can also be done in a really beautiful, artful way. Now let's take this party outside. This is our personal backyard oasis. And believe it or not, this space was actually a gross gravel driveway that we never used. It had a chain link fence, and we ended up doing this really cool checkered lawn. We added this whole second tier on top. We added a cowboy pool. I love the high-low vibe of a cowboy pool, and we really try to elevate it by painting fun colors, getting these really nice benches and cushions. I like to treat designing an exterior the same way I do an interior. So I have a bunch of cozy seating, little vignettes, conversation moments, and I create a space that you actually want to sit and hang out with your friends. We love hosting back here. We love hanging out in the cowboy pool. It's just such a magical space that was literally unused before. We have tons of activities in the backyard, including this ping pong table. I was a big fan of the show Love Island, and they have their pink ping pong table that was so cute, and I needed my own that actually matched our house. So I found this amazing mint green one from Ledge Loungers. I love finding things that are aesthetic, but also practical, and fitting them into a space. Same with this matching dartboard. How cute is it? This is our epic deck. This was here when we first bought the house, but it was all painted red, and it felt angry and not relaxing. And adding this dark green totally transformed the space. It has gorgeous views, trees everywhere. It has this really cool covered area, a built-in fireplace moment, and this really neat floor that my husband and I did myself. It was all concrete before, but we painted it with a stencil using concrete paint, and it worked like a charm, and now it looks like a tile floor. I feel like your interior and your home is so much more than just a physical space or something that's like trivial or shallow, if you will. I think that it's something that can truly affect your day-to-day life. Your space can bring you joy and happiness if you're building it around things that you love and things that spark joy in your life. And I think that that can not only make your day-to-day life a little happier, but bleed into all areas of your life and inspire you to be a little more bold and daring and just joyful. Well, Homeworthy, it was so fun to show you through my home in LA, but it's time that you get out of here. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.